everybody. It's been about 3 weeks, I think, since I did an update on my garden and the hoop house, and I thought I would put a little clips together here and show you what's happening. Start with a look at my red flowering horse chestnut tree. I love this thing. It only produces chestnuts when my next door neighbor's small white flowering horse chestnut tree has blossoms, so I'm assuming it needs to be cross-pollinated, I guess. And even though that tree is several hundred meters from here, I'm on a fairly large property, I only get chestnuts when that thing blooms, and it's a small tree and it only has a few blossoms, but it's got a few this year, so hopefully we will see some chestnuts this summer and fall and whatever. Kevin in Ontario, one of my subscribers, and I subscribe to him too and watch his gardening videos, reminded me of something that I had thought about doing a year or two ago and never did get around to it. I have just purchased some DIY stuff and put eaves trough gutter on the north side of the cabin, and a large container, 60 US gallon container for rainwater. We had a little bit of rain yesterday and that filled it about a quarter full, I guess. I was going to get one of those fancy rain barrel things that even has a tap on the bottom. Well, this particular container was half the price of one of those, and it holds almost twice as much water. The other rig would be nice. I mean, it's covered over at the top, which means that mosquitoes wouldn't be able to lay their eggs in the water and you'd end up with mosquito larvae. But there's an easy solution to that problem too. Just put a cup of bleach in there and that kills them, and within 24 hours the bleach has dissipated and it isn't in the water. But anyway, I finally am able to collect some rainwater. Well, the potatoes have all been brought out into the garden, and they've all, well, most of them anyway, have been completely earthed up. There's 2 or 3 that I'll still have to add a little more soil to. The shallots are dividing. I've got my shadow in the picture here. The shallots are dividing nicely. Some of them are 3, some 2. I don't think I've seen one that's 4 yet. But also, I've come up with scissors this morning. They're also trying to bloom. And I'm just not going to let that happen. Waste their energy going into blossoms and seeds. I want them to grow shallots at the base there. Another one down in there. I see a little one coming. Good. The peas, these are Sugar Ann, an heirloom variety of snap peas. They've come up and they're doing fairly well. More potatoes, more of my shadow. And the beans at the back of this bed are Meuch beans. Oh dear. M-U-N-C-H, I think. Anyway, I'll put an annotation up here with the correct spelling. David on the Work with Nature channel, who used to live in Switzerland and now lives in India, gave me the seeds last fall. Well, when I Google the name that he used for them, I get absolutely nothing, and that is most unusual with Google. You usually come up with something. I mean, it'll bring up beans if I use the name Meuch and beans together, but this particular name or variety never comes up in a search. So if anybody's got any idea what these actually are, I would appreciate it. And the leeks are growing. I bought 12 plugs, and I think supposedly I thought that would be 12 plants, but there was several in each. I think I got close to 30, 28 or something here. And there's the last patch of potatoes. This is my bed of asparagus, which I added more plants to this year. It's now, I guess it's now 16 plants in that 4x4 bed. I've had one nice meal out of them, besides the ones that I munch out here raw. I really like raw asparagus. And here we have my onions, and they are developing nicely. I've got the same problem that I knew I would have. There's weeds out here in the center where I can't reach, but I've got to get a hoe and get at that today. You see some that are sort of laid over on the side. We've recently had rain, so the contrasting color in the soil isn't showing up this morning, but there are moles in this bed making underground highways, and they haven't killed an onion. I don't know if they're doing any damage down below, like, you know, eating the roots or whatever, but they don't seem to be eating the bulbs. There's one there that they've thrown completely on the surface, though. And over there is another one that's laid over. So I'm not certain what is going to happen with my onions this year. So far, so good. The onions that we grow, at least in this area, are called day neutral. They grow their tops and don't bother producing the bulb until the summer solstice, and after the 21st of June, and when it's noticeable that the days are getting shorter, I don't even want to think about it, then they will start bulking up the onion at the base. I haven't planted potatoes in this bed in, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years anyway, and I still have volunteer potatoes coming up. Not that those are left over from 5 or 6 years ago. I usually grow things like squash in here with big leaves, and the potatoes come up and I don't see them, and of course dig as many out as I can dig out in the fall, but still there's always those little ones left behind. This is my garden behind fencing to keep the bunny rabbits out, and outside of it is basically a wild area now. It's another area that I've given up on mowing. I used to mow that even last year. I just decided this spring I never go over there. Why mow it? So those are my blueberry, high bush blueberries over there, and lots of wildflowers. In this bed there are now 5 asparagus plants. This one here has been here for a number of years, and I always remember the variety name. I don't know the variety name on any other, but this one is Mary Washington. I always joke, who is Mary Washington, and did Martha know? Anyway, these are the Hokkaido Pumpkin plants. I've got one growing in the hoop house too, but altogether I have 3 of them. I'm thinking when they call it a pumpkin, it's probably more what we would call a squash. I know, like in Australia and places, what we call a butternut squash, they call a pumpkin, which we probably should call it a pumpkin too, because when you buy canned pumpkin, you're not getting that sort of jack-o'-lantern pumpkin thing that's on the picture on the can. You're getting butternut squash. But anyway, an heirloom variety called Hokkaido, and I'm really interested in giving those a try. This garden out here was really overgrown with weeds. That is a volunteer lupin plant that I didn't have the heart to turf out of there. They are a legume, so at least I can say it's fixing nitrogen into the soil, but I love the things. They're all over my property. I planted them years ago and they spread on their own, but wherever one comes up at, I leave it. And here we have 2 different varieties of summer squash. You can look on the plant list I'll put down below, 31 and 25. Anyway, one of them is a Pattypan squash and the other is a yellow crookneck squash. More of the Meuch Beans in the background there. More of them over here as well. I have 3 different areas with these chicken wire trellises growing those beans, so I hope I like them. I'm growing enough of them. And this is what I was just talking about, butternut squash, an heirloom variety, the Waltham butternut squash. I'm having to come out almost daily with slug pellets because this is high slug season here. If you remember last year, I tried to grow Ethiopian lentils, and the bunny rabbits loved them. They came up, they mowed them down to the ground, and all summer they kept coming back up, and every time they got 2 or 3 inches tall, the bunny rabbits would come back and mow them to the ground. Well, anyway, they're now growing in an area behind fences, so hopefully I will get a taste of Ethiopian lentils this fall. Before we leave here, a look at this is my rain gauge out here. I say we had a bit of rain yesterday that about filled that water barrel thing about a quarter full. Well, that rain was less than ½ an inch according to this gauge, which of course is not a scientific gauge, but it was just a light rain off and on all day. I gave the garlic a feed of Epsom salts, which really helped improve the color a lot, and most of the plants are growing very tall. Somebody that I follow, and I can't remember who, but somebody last year was saying that they got double, might have been Rob in Finland. I'm not sure, but Anyway, I have 2 or 3 places where I have doubles this year. I know it was just one clove, but it has split and come up into double plants. This is that little patch I guess I showed in my last video of things that overwintered, and I've kept them to watch them go to flower here. This is the salsify, which is budded and will be blooming quite soon now. Belgian endive, or wet leaf chicory, whatever you want to call it, is certainly going up into a tall spike here. I assume that's going to bloom soon too. And there's a couple of parsnips that have no sign of any blossom buds on them yet, but they are quite large. This is that same bed, and it has growing in this end of it the rapini. I think that's the same as broccoli de Rob. I think they're the same plant anyway, but they're coming along nicely. Well, I guess down in there closely I may see some little blossom buds coming along there. And this is white Russian kale, quite different than any kale I've grown before. The leaves are a very delicate thing. Not usually kale is quite substantial, like a cabbage, a heavy leaf. And next to that is the purple top small turnips. I'm just about to set up here and thin out the kale and the turnips, and I'll be able to use them for greens. And down in here, I guess you can see, that is the, I want to say rainbow, but I forget what they called it, but anyway, a multicolored chard. Well, I got a nice bowl, or look, a colander full of decent greens for dinner this evening, and the plants are looking a bit knocked over. I'll probably still have to thin these turnips out a bit, but I'll let them grow for a while longer before I make that decision, I guess. Well, a little quick look around inside the hoop house here. I've made a sort of a corral for my crown peas. They haven't bloomed yet, and I just put 4 short canes in the ground and some garden twine to hold them up, and it seems to be working quite well. It wouldn't work very well out in the garden, but inside here there isn't any wind, and they are about to bloom. They only bloom on the top of the plant. See down in there, we'll have a cluster of blossoms shaped like a crown, which is where it gets its name, and also that they bloom on the crown, the top of the plant. I would say they'll be in bloom by this time next week. Yesterday I put my beets in. 2 patches, one there and a few more over here. I grew 3 crops of beets last year, 2 that were really quite successful, and the 3rd crop, which grew like baby beet size, I guess. They were still tasty, but my goal this year is to grow 2 crops. And over here, these are Armenian cucumbers, 4 of them. Been in for a little over a week, and they're starting to get their second leaves. And these are Salanova lettuce. There's 5 here. That one there, if you can pick it out or not, it's the same color as the soil. It's one of the red ones, like I already have 3 of those. I'm going to harvest one in just a minute here. This is the black currant cuttings that I just stuck in the ground, and I pruned them off the plants from the winter damage. And I would say definitely these are rooting, so midsummer sometime I'll have to find somebody to give them to or someplace to plant them. And the maple tree, the red bloodgood Japanese maple, all the little branches that I put in here were brown and crispy, nothing happening to them, and I pulled them out. And I was pulling this one out, a larger stick, when I noticed this leaf coming on it, and then I noticed at the bottom this has roots. If I can keep it alive or not, that it will continue to go, but I water it every other day or so now, and it did have fine roots coming on the bottom of it. So that does work, Dave. I think I might have one on the go here. These are my radishes, which are starting to bolt. Always happens because it's too hot. I should never have planted them in here, but I've been getting some out of it, and I hope to get some more, I guess. Here are the 3 Salanova, surrounded by dill. I let dill go to seed in here last year on purpose because I was losing it out in the garden. And for some reason, maybe I didn't let it go to seed one year. Anyway, there wasn't anything in the garden last year, so I'll let it go to seed in here. I'm going to harvest one of these. The biggest one, I guess, will do. When I get back to the house, I'll show you a little more about them, and hopefully cut that the way they show you to cut it, and you can watch it fall apart into a salad. Those are my 3 artichoke plants. I was watching Southpaw Dave in Switzerland this morning, and he showed his with artichokes already on. And I noticed a difference in the foliage, so different varieties, I guess. Mine is more a blue-gray, and his is more a nice green color. They haven't grown a great deal, but every one of them is sending up another plant beside it. Let me show you that. There's one there you can see just coming up. There's one at the base of that one. And on the back of this one, there's one coming up. So they are alive and growing, and they have stopped wilting, so I guess that's going to work out. And these are my 3 Sunberry plants. In the house they grew, I don't think I'm exaggerating by saying they were 6 feet tall when I brought them out here. I cut them back to about 2 feet high, and they seem to really like that. They bushed up, and lots of new side growth coming, and lots of blossoms. I've had a few ripe black ones to try that were already out here. They were green when I brought them out here, and I don't know, to me they're certainly not going to be a blueberry replacement, but we'll see what they're like later on when I have more of them, I guess. All of my determinate tomatoes were the same way, tall and lanky. I cut them back severely, and they have bushed up, and we have blossoms coming on some of them. No tomatoes yet. And in the front here are peppers. The 2 on the end are a small sweet pepper, mini pepper, seed sent to me by one of my subscribers, and I'm sorry I can't remember your name right now. Down the center in the soil here are poblanos, the Mexican mild chili pepper. And here we have the espelettes, which I am so pleased. Somewhere here I've got, there's one. They actually have small peppers on them, and I mean very small at this point, but they're going to produce, Elise, and I'm quite happy with that. This one, for some reason, was attacked when I first brought it out here. I put slug pellets down, never did find any slugs, never did find out what was eating all the leaves, but anyway, it has gone away, whatever it was, and it's bushing up and sending out new leaves. I've got one of the poblanos in a smart pot here, a geopot I guess it is really, but I want to see the difference between growing it in the pot and these ones that I had to plant in the soil because I'm out of pots. Plants on either end here are mouse melons, and the one in the middle is the Achocha, and I have seen blossoms on all of them, and very, very tiny mouse melons that I won't bother to try to zoom in on because I don't think they'd show up very well, but they're going to produce, I guess. I get around this side here. That's the Achocha. It's the first time I've seen a blossom on the Achocha. I saw these clusters of blossom buds all over it yesterday, and the first one has opened this morning. And this is the new bed that I put in here this spring. Filled it with the soil from last year's containers, and I've got a couple of cucumbers, the ordinary kind. I can't remember what the variety is right now. I had Armenian cucumbers in those 2 spots, and they got eaten off by something. This is one very small Armenian still here. Now this container is going to a friend shortly. And then I've planted some squash. That's another of the Hokkaido squash, and then one of the Pattypans and one of the yellow crooknecks. And to look back at the grapevine, which I haven't done any of the summer pruning on yet. I'm waiting till it finishes setting fruit. There are clusters everywhere in full bloom right now. And also on that one to the far right, the Somerset, once again has got blossoms on it. Does that every year and never produces anything. So I think this might be its last chance. If it doesn't produce this year, it's probably going to be a goner, and I will replace it with something else. Back outside here for a little look around at a couple of things in my perennial fruit and vegetable area. This is something I'm asking you 2 experts on the goji berries. Darren and Dave, do you think that is goji berry? Both of my goji berries winter killed, and this is the last year's growth, completely gone. Nothing like this is coming up around the other one, but this has come up. I started pulling it off and throwing it away, and it was very hard to remove. If it's a weed, it's the only one growing in this area. So anyway, I'm leaving that alone, and I'm waiting for your opinion. Do you think the goji is coming up from the roots, or is that a weed? Well, this is the Romance Series cherry tree, the one called Romeo. And I don't know if it's set any fruit at all or not. That looks like it could possibly be a cherry. And that one still looks viable, I guess, but most of them have fallen off. Either the plant has rejected them because the plant's too small to grow anything yet, or they didn't get pollinated, one or the other. I would like to think at least one or two so I get a taste of them. And this is the grafted Asian pear, which is really putting on a lot of growth this year. Like that new branch there is, well, it's probably not a foot, but it's probably 10 inches or so and still growing. And it has set fruit, a lot of fruit, which I don't dare let it keep. There's one or two branches that are quite sturdy that I may let one pear grow on just to see what they're like. But you can see, like here, that's definitely set. You're probably thinking, well, that's not pear-shaped. If you're not familiar with Asian pears. Asian pears are not the traditional pear shape that we think of, like the Bartlett or the Ancho or whatever. They're more round, big round things, like a big apple. Quite juicy and nice. But the branches are far too small to allow them to produce those big pears, so I will probably limit it to one or two. Well, I think that'll do for out here at the garden. We'll go up and finish this video by cutting apart the lettuce head there, the Salanova lettuce head. As you can see there, I have my greens in soak. I'll leave them there all day in cold water. That keeps them fresh and crisp, and I'll give them a final rinse and spin the water off of them before I cook them. And this is my Salanova, something I have never done before, so I don't know how well this will work. There are basically two kinds of the Salanova, and this is the one that you need. You don't need, you can just take the leaves off individually, but they sell a special tool for separating this into leaves, which I have not bought and don't intend to. I'm going to try to use a biscuit cutter, which to me looks fairly similar to the tool that they're using. The other type, you just cut it off at the base, and that's where all the leaves are attached, and it just falls open. So I'm hoping that some of my green ones that I just got started in there will be like that. But anyway, it's a lovely plant. I've just tasted the leaves, very nice. I was surprised that these were red, actually. In the house there was no red at all. When I took them out into the hoop house, they turned red. So we'll give this a try here. Yeah, that's basically what they do with their tool. And you have their leaves all separated. Got a little bit there that's still attached. I guess that was the very crown, the top of it. Anyway, I'll do the same with this. Put it in soak and keep it nice and crisp, and then I will spin it for a salad this evening. Very nice leaves. And tasty. Well, thank you very much for watching. I think that's probably enough for this little video.